fellow homesteaders. Please excuse my messy counter. Not day drinker, this is from another natural cleaner project. Today we are going to be making a do-it-yourself, all-natural, low-tox stain remover for your clothes and your laundry. This works so well, I had to go digging in the grandkids' spare clothes for Yaya and Papa's house to find something with a stain on it. I'm going to test the solution out on here. This little play dress has been through the dryer, so the stain's pretty well set. So I'm not necessarily going to guarantee this very potent, powerful, could not be happier with it, stain remover will remove this stain since it's been through the dryer. But I'm hoping that it might, or maybe even just make it a little bit lighter. So this recipe was a little bit of trial and error. The measurements are in the article and they're approximates. I have on there use up to 2 tablespoons of baking soda. You may need to use a little more or a little less. You want a nice paste that's going to stick to the fabric but not stick so much it clumps and it's hard to get off. You don't want it to be runny either. So you just got to kind of play around with a little bit. So these measurements are just a guideline. And oops, dump some water out of here. I'm going to put a half a cup. Take the whole lid off. It's going to take forever for this peroxide to pour. A 3% hydrogen peroxide. Doing 2 parts peroxide and 1 part Blue Dawn, at least to start with. Then you can determine if it is too runny or too thick. Now Blue Dawn is what I always use. I have not yet been able to master and be happy with a completely all-natural liquid dish soap. If you have a recipe for that, please feel free to share it in comments or use whatever dish soap that you normally use, and you may be purchasing an all-natural one if you don't make one. Though I caution you, anytime you buy something that says all-natural or such and such free, to really read the label and do some research, because they could be great products, but I used to buy some of those types of things and was very disappointed when I did research on some of the ingredients, and then there's so many unknowns. Because the FDA does not regulate, there's no federal agency that regulates the cleaning, dietary supplement products or artificial fragrances the way that vitamins, medications, and foods are regulated. So if something is a proprietary ingredient, part of a work product and their own recipe they don't want to give up to competitors, in many cases it does not have to be included. So you really have to watch and know what you're reading, do your research. Now this is, in my opinion, too liquidy. Some people put it in a squirt bottle and spray it on like you would Shout. This is not what I would call a paste. I like it to be a little bit pasty. Maybe you'll try it liquidy. I don't think it would work any less. You just have to scrub a lot harder, and if it's thicker, you can put it on and let it sit and settle. And then scrub it better with a toothbrush. Maybe you just want it in a squirt bottle so you can squirt some on your garment and do this little thing like this, like you would with store-bought containers. If you prefer liquid, go ahead. It's not going to change the potency at all. I really can't talk today. I've been talking non-stop for projects for hours today. So it's looking a little milky. And I really think to get the paste consistency that I want. Now these are teaspoons, and I was making them heaping to replicate a tablespoon. So I don't think I put quite enough in to begin with. I'm not using a tablespoon, so don't go dumping a whole bunch of tablespoons in and thinking it's not going to get pasty. This is still, it has some consistency to it now, but it's still a little bit more liquidy. I would not call this a paste yet, though it would be too thick. See, you get a little bit, you can tell a little bit better right here. It is starting to thicken up. But it's too thick now to go through a squirt bottle without clogging it. But I like mine to be a little bit more of a paste. The baking soda does such a great job at breaking up whatever is on your clothing. And the peroxide and the Blue Dawn help to lift it. Peroxide is becoming more and more one of my low-tox, do-yourself natural cleaning agent ingredients. And it didn't used to be. Vinegar was my go-to, and rubbing alcohol or vodka for pretty much anything, and I still love those 3 ingredients. But hydrogen peroxide, I was surprised at how well it has worked in so many different recipes that I found, played around with, altered a little bit. You just need to make sure you don't, sometimes people will make up their own or play around and alter a recipe, which is great. I've done that. I've found several, and I've changed measurements around or omitted something because I didn't care for it or didn't like it. Or I'm sorry, I didn't care for it, I didn't have it. But if you mix vinegar and peroxide together, you can get an acidic gas mixture, chemical mixture that can be just about as harmful, if not more so, than what you would get in a store-bought product. And it's always best to use 3% hydrogen peroxide. As you can see, peroxide comes in an amber or brown collared plastic container. When exposed to light, it loses its potency rather quickly. So if you're going to make up a good amount of stain remover, no matter what type of container you're storing it in, preferably a dark one, and I would keep it somewhere that's not in direct sunlight. Keep it in your cabinet with your rest of your first aid materials or somewhere like that to avoid the exposure to light. And I'm going to let that sit on there for a minute. Don't have a toothbrush handy. You can just use your finger, or you can do the crinkling back and forth. I've done both. Depends on how quickly you want it to try to get a stain out. If it's a tough stain or a large stain, I would definitely leave it sit for about 15 minutes. Trying to get something out in a hurry so you can launder it, something you're going to wear, something you're just going to use this on and put a little bit of water on it and then use your hair dryer to dry it up because it's clothing that you have on, or something you need quickly, that's fine too. Just the longer you let it set, the better it's going to be at breaking up the stain. But as I noted, I'm not having super great hopes that the only thing that I could find in my house that was stained, my mother would be so proud, was something that had already been set in. Now as I'm scrubbing through it here, I can see a little bit of darkening of my paste. As you can see, it looks liquidy in the bowl, but you get it on here and it does get a bit more pasty in nature. You don't want it to be so thick that it doesn't spread. I can see it getting a little dark, so I think it's lifting up at least some of the stain on Ari's little dress, but yet I still see it there. I want to give you a much better performance test. And I even thought about trying to put some kind of fresh stain on this dress since it was a play dress and already had stains. But then I would have had to have gone out and found some mud and put it on and let it dry. And so I'm going to test it as best I can. And I would love to hear in the comments section below your experience with it when you try it. On our social media, on Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook, please always feel free to upload your pictures, whether it turns out great or an epic failure and it's a recipe you didn't like and want to say it's not good, or how did you fail. We'd love to see the pictures. On these type of testing, it's much easier to try to showcase how well something works or it doesn't, and to figure out why if there's a photo. In our comment section below, you can only share text. So I'm going to let it sit on here and kind of scrub out a bit with my fingernail like you would with a toothbrush. I don't know how many times this stain, and I'm not quite sure what it is, has gone through the dryer. And once you have a stain go through the dryer, it's pretty well set, and there's not much hope of getting it off. But I was hoping to have a little bit of progress with it. This is my favorite stain remover recipe that I've ever used. I like it better than store-bought stuff. I think it works better. Even if I wasn't looking for a low-tox household, I would mix this up because it's cheap, it's easy, and it does work so extremely well. But as I pull up my paste here, I'm still seeing my stain. And I would like to think it's maybe a little bit lighter, but I can't even vouch for that because it has been through the dryer. So you'll just have to try it yourself and see what you think. But as you can see, it mixes up, it coats. You don't want to be too runny. It can get all over your outfit. Now if you have something that's dingy, vinegar's great in your rinse water in your washer. And if you have something that you pre-treat with this and then you've rinsed it off before you put it in, there might be some peroxide residue, but I don't really think there's any hazard of where you'd have to stop using vinegar in your rinse. But if you have something just a little bit dingy, not necessarily stained, something that's white, you don't have time to do a big vinegar soak and then wash and dry, and the smell does dissipate quickly. You can use this stain remover, I found quite accidentally when my daughter grabbed the wrong jug one day, just to treat something that's white to bring back the vibrant color. The lemon juice and water stain remover recipe here in the article is better for armpit or ring around the collar stains in this. This will also work on that. If you want a little extra stain remover of those types of stains, cutting power, and didn't have time or space or the inclination to mix up two separate things, you could put a little bit of lemon juice in this. It's not going to hurt anything. The lemon juice will not keep as long. This will not keep as long as the lemon juice mixed in it. But if you're just using it right then or the next 2 or 3 days, you should be fine. So unfortunately, Araya or Audie, I'm not sure whose little dress this is still going to have the deep set-in stain that's been laundered and multiple times. But you get an idea of how to use it, and hopefully it's as successful as for you as it is for me.